Welcome to the Drones in Construction panel today. We have a number of subject matter experts that we'll be hearing from. Thank you for joining us. Okay, hello everyone. I'd like everyone to introduce themselves and tell us your respective roles at your organization, please.
My name is Laurie Crandell, and I'm the CEO of the New Home Warranty Program of Manitoba. I'm also representing basically the builders of Manitoba today as a representative of the Manitoba Home Builders Association through their Education and Training Committee.
Hi, I'm Nolan Klassen. I'm with Lewis Instruments here in Winnipeg. We're a local survey supply shop. We've been around for over 70 years, and I'm here to speak a bit on drones. I look after drone sales and support at Lewis, and I'll pass it on.
Mark Bruskiewicz, Operations Manager with Bird Construction. We've been in Canada for, I believe, over 105 years, in Manitoba for 85 years, so we're a general contractor working across the country.
Mark, you might as well hold on to it now. I'm curious, how did drones come to be used in your workplace?
We use drones for various tasks. We use them to do investigative work in areas that are difficult to reach. We build some unique buildings that present challenges where sometimes you need, rope access or intricate scaffold systems. Drones give us the ability to get into these areas easily and provide some inspections on quality, or if we're investigating. Most recently, we investigated a bridge that required some work, and it was difficult to access, so we were able to leverage the technology of the drones to get in these areas without needing complex work platforms.
Nolan, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess if we're going to talk a bit about the history of drones in construction, we could, maybe start back when Lewis in particular got into it. It was 2014. It was kind of brand new at that time. A lot of the Transport Canada and Nav Canada regulations were a lot different then. It was maybe a bit more accessible to the average company, but still, at the time, very brand new. So we got into it early on, I would say, being a survey supply, equipment supply shop for a long time in this province. When trends change in technology, it's a responsibility of a company like ours to stay with those trends, and especially at an early stage, so that we can help companies that want to get into this right from the get-go. So we started back, like I said, 2014 was kind of when things started kicking off with drones. So that's it's almost approaching 10 years already, which time flies, but many different applications. Like I would say when we first started into it, a large part of it was done with topographic surveying. So drones have the ability to drastically increase field capture time for topographic survey. Typically, a surveyor with a GPS rover is doing shot by shot, one shot at a time in a grid formation over a large piece of land. And you could spend a day or two, even a week, doing a survey that a drone can do in an hour. So the time savings and then the richness of the data that you get back is just night and day compared to old methods, right? So you get imagery, you get full surface, just like a DTM, which is a digital terrain model. Everything comes back with an hour of flight time maybe and a few hours of processing. So big return on investment for a lot of companies to consider when you can do something so quickly, right? Some of the first companies were gravel pits, like companies that need to do monthly inventories on their piles, and they were hiring surveying companies to go do that work, which cost a lot and it was very time consuming, and they started thinking of drones as an application, and that's kind of some of the first few companies we started dealing with on this. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Nolan.
Yeah.
Laurie?
So drone technology really hasn't reached the new home construction industry in a way that is reaching all the ways that it would be applicable. I think, from the builder's point of view, they know what a drone is. They're looking at ways of maybe using drones more. Right now they're using drones occasionally for marketing, but that's kind of where it ends. So they see how a drone works and they see some of the potential, but that's kind of where the limitations are right now when it comes to drone technology in the residential construction sector. When it comes to new home warranty, I myself, I've never flown a drone personally. We don't have a drone in our office, although it's not something that, I could see that it could be something we could use in the future for investigation. I can't speak for the rest of the warranty providers. There are about 3 or 4 other warranty providers in Manitoba, and I don't think that they are using drone technology at all as well. So that's where we stand. We do have a wish list, but
Can you give me an example in the home warranty program how you could see drones being used?
Well, I suppose there's numerous of applications that they could be used, whether or not we don't know what the technology is. So in the construction industry, a lot of the builders haven't heard of LiDAR. They haven't heard of ground penetrating radar. So they don't even know what that is and how it could be applied. I did an interview with some of our builder members just to find out how they feel the drones could be used. It's kind of a bit of a wish list. So the first one that has come up is attic review. So in an attic, we can have situations where the insulation becomes displaced, or maybe it hasn't been put up properly at all, missing vapor barrier or improper installation. Is there any heat loss? So that would be one application. Whether that would be done flying a drone through the attic or over the house, over the roof to take a look at that heat loss. Of course, as you know, when it comes to getting into an attic, walking around the attic is going to displace that insulation even more. So we want to see how we could use that drone to look at those areas before somebody goes in and tramples all that insulation. Roof reviews. So this is an area of concern with the new home warranty industry because when it comes to roofing concerns, there's really no roofing consultants that will go out and provide a review of the roof that we could use to make an assessment of what kind of damage is there and what kind of repairs are needed. We generally would have to hire an actual roofer, which is a conflict of interest because they are there wanting to actually make some money to repair the roof. So it's difficult to rely on that kind of assessment. So builders feel the same way, that is actually a good application, especially if you've got a work site with multiple homes on a street. So some builders, tract builders are doing 15, 20 homes at once, taking a drone out once a day to fly over and see the progress on the roofs would be very helpful. Talking about insulation in the attic, we could also talk about general insulation problems throughout the whole home. So looking for spots where insulation could be missing in the walls. It seems to be a very popular warranty complaint from homeowners when they are feeling a cold wall, cold windows, stuff like that. We're well aware of the infrared cameras that can do this work, but a whole home review, especially at a time before that home gets delivered to the homeowner, might be a great way for the builder to reduce their liability so this being proactive rather than reactive. Okay. Water penetration. Water penetration is huge. That is one of the largest expenses when it comes to a defect. You could chase a water infiltration for years before you actually find the source and repair it properly. So if there was a way to actually see the water in the wall, find its source and be able to track it so you know what limited area you are having to deconstruct to correct the problem would be really helpful. Pile depth measurement. So this one, I wasn't even thinking about it, but a couple builders have mentioned that it would be really interesting if they could verify that their pile that they have put down in the ground is down to the depth that it's required to be down. So along with pile depth measurement, we've talked about soil surveying. So, that's something that is done regularly. The builders hire an engineer to survey the area that they're going to build the home, take soil samples. So, along with pile depth measurement, it would be beneficial to have an understanding of what the soil looks like in that whole area, rather than just the soil samples that they're taking every 5 feet. You could miss an area that might be of critical importance. One of the situations that we had in warranty recently was a pile, several piles in a home that were drilled down, and they were drilled down past the bedrock and hit some water. And what happens there is you get an aquifer effect, where now the water is moving up through the cavity of the pile and entering the foundation of the home. And so if the builder had known ahead of time that that was a situation, some adjustments could have been made. So the biggest problem with that is doing some reading on, it was the UK Drone Association, so it was on their website, and they mentioned that one of the setbacks to having drones review below soil conditions is the fact that it's difficult to do with clay soil. So I don't know if that is a real problem or not, but after doing a few more searches on the internet, it seems that that actually is problematic, especially if the clay soil is waterlogged. So this could be actually a setback in Manitoba. How do we get past, that setback and use the technology where it's really needed? So beyond that, we could also be looking for wiring issues. I've heard that that's actually something that is being done. Below grade concrete wall X-ray. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. How do you look inside a concrete wall? How do you detect the honeycombing and whether or not there's cracks or deficiencies? So this would be, could the drone do this on a fully built home with below grade concrete walls? I know the technology exists with the robots that can be used. So maybe this is something that could be incorporated. Weeping tile. So here's another issue. So we can take a camera to look inside weeping tile to see if there's any issues where the weeping tile is damaged, not on a proper slope. Maybe there's a blockage. But in my experience, these cameras are not foolproof, that they don't give a full picture of the entire slope of the area for the weeping tile, whether or not the weeping tile on the exterior has been put on undisturbed ground, for example. So all these things, that sounds like a really good application for drone technology, to take a look at both the interior and the exterior weeping tile. Take a look at any problems that might exist. And then so there's some discussion about how drone technology could be married with AI, with robotics. And there's a couple builders who said, hey, I really wish that the drone could just by itself every Saturday just fly around my work site, the 20 homes that I have under construction, and get an idea of what the inventory is and what the construction looks like. So I can imagine, the drone in the bat cave, the door opens, the drone goes. So this is the kind of the thing on their wish list. And security, workplace health and safety, these are, definitely concerns that the builders have. Can a drone assist with this? Good question, So that was a long list, but these are all the things that we're thinking might be a really good area for the drones to assist us with.
That was excellent, Lori. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, we've talked a little bit about the uses of drones. I'm just wondering now, Lori's extensively talked about home building, if Nolan and Mark could add to that conversation if things have come to mind as Lori was speaking.
Do you want to jump in a bit?
I think Lori did a great job with a pretty comprehensive list. I think as technology, with what we're seeing with AI and everything else develops, I think a lot of those things are going to become reality. And whether it's, residential construction or the, commercial, industrial, institutional stuff that we work on, a lot of that is going to, flow through the various industries. So I think the list is pretty comprehensive. Just in the short period of time that we've been using drones, you're seeing the quality from the video and the photos increase significantly. So again, when it comes to items like investigations, we're really got some good data there, and now you actually have a record of these items that you can reference at a later date, as opposed to somebody going down there. And let's face it, in most cases when we're doing inspections, somebody's walking around taking pictures anyways. So we've just really created an efficient way to capture that data. Nolan touched a little bit about the topographic surveys. We've done one recently on a project, and just the savings in time is significant. Just having the ability to capture a lot more data and just provide a level of efficiency that to date we haven't been able to achieve.
Yeah, to maybe to touch on a little bit of what Lori said and some of my thoughts that came to mind, like when you're looking at drainage surveys for weeping tile, like above ground surveys, is definitely an application for drones. Like I was mentioning with getting a DTM or a digital terrain model, 3D elevations and seeing where water will go. It's definitely an application. Roof inspections would be another thing. And when I think of a large development being built, like ongoing progress reporting, and having, orthographic images printed out. So that would be a 2-scale image printed out on, it could be a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of paper and plastered in a few different work trailers so that everybody sees these images and back in the office as well. I know companies are doing that sort of thing as well. And when we talk about autonomy, some people might think that a pilot is actually, when some of these surveys are being done, that they're actually physically driving the drone for these large mapping missions, and that's actually not the case. There is some form of intelligence that these drones have currently for basically flying fully autonomously. So it's basically a situation where an operator will define a geofenced area in an application on, typically the controller of the drone has a piece of software running on that controller, and you're looking at like a Google Earth sort of map interface, and you're able to plot a boundary, and within that boundary the drone is then going to have a grid going back and forth, zigzagging across that area, capturing either LiDAR or imagery or both, and then we have software after that comes in to process that information into either what we call point cloud information or TINs or surfaces, which are essentially like a triangulated mesh that represents the topography. And then thirdly, an orthographic image, which is an image that's to scale. So you could underlay it under a CAD drawing and trace to scale measurements on it. So you can actually take areas and things like that. And like I was saying, like those printouts are very handy, and even big like work yards where you're tracking the movement of inventory in and out of a yard on a regular basis. So while there still might be the need for an operator to send these drones up and actually do these flights, the level of autonomy has gotten to the point where they're basically just having a preset mission ready to go and just hitting go. And they're just there to kind of keep an eye on it. It does its thing, comes back and lands. And
cool.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Mark, I'm curious, how many people are currently working at Bird Construction using drones, and what is their role?
So we have a couple individuals that, a good portion of their role is to deal with drones and work within drones, and it falls into, we have other technology that we use, and that's just one of the tools in their toolbox that they use. But then we have drones that are under the 250 grams or 249 grams that you don't need a pilot's license to fly, and are relatively user friendly. So that's something that a good chunk of our staff would be using on the various projects, and that would be more so for either investigations or progress photos and videos, and maybe even some marketing. We got some individuals on the marketing side that are also using drones. So it's definitely grown over the last few years, where, if you go back 5-6 years ago, we had one individual that basically did all of our work with the drone, and now it's really expanded to a larger group.
Excellent. So Nolan, I'm curious from your perspective, have you seen an increase in the number of companies that are using drones since 2014?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, in 2014, you could probably count on your hand how many companies were getting into it, but I would say there's, dozens, if not, at least dozens of companies in the province doing drones. And it's kind of a mix, where back when it first began, I would say there were some pioneers, some guys that decided, let's start a drone business and go offer this service, right? Mm-hmm. And that quickly became very competitive, actually, where these small startups were competing with each other on price, and in the long run, as time has progressed, kind of losing out to the fact that, well, now most companies can hire someone that has maybe some technical ability and a drone pilot's license and do it themselves. Like Bird would be an example, right? Taking that sort of drone capability in-house saves that company money in the long run, and gives them more direct access to data capture whenever they need it. So I think the trend has been it's more like surveying, engineering, construction companies are actually now purchasing this equipment themselves and hiring the people they need to run these programs internally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exciting. Now, do you consider yourself at Lewis Instruments as an early adopter of this technology?
I would say so, yeah. Back in that time, 2014 range, there wasn't too many people doing it at that point in time. We might have been maybe 1 year behind when it kind of initially rolled out into these markets, but still definitely very early. And I dealt with a lot of the different companies, the startups that got into it and learned hard lessons. A lot of them got bought out and absorbed into bigger companies, and then as time moved forward, and like I was saying, the larger companies just end up taking on drone programs internally themselves. But early adoption was key for us as a distributor of survey instrument products. We have to be at the forefront of technology. So drones, when they were starting to be used for this purpose, we had to be there, right? So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mark, what about Bird Construction? Would you consider Bird as an early adopter of this technology? And what are some of the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, I would say we're an early adopter of the technology. I think initially when we started using the technology, it was similar to what Nolan was just saying. We were actually hiring companies to provide the service, and then we kind of recognized that we can actually acquire the technology, and we have people in house that have the ability to implement some of this work. So I think in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years is where we started doing a little more of the in-house. In terms of the pros and cons, it's just, I think, one of those things, if you're not constantly adapting with the new technology, you're going to get left behind. And, there's a tremendous amount of efficiency that comes with this kind of technology. And I think that's probably the biggest pro. In terms of cons, right now there's, you got to get the pilot's license, which is a little bit of an obstacle right now. It's, as I understand it, a fairly challenging test. It's not that easy to acquire, but we've had a couple of individuals that have gone through the process and and acquired the license. That's probably one of the biggest roadblocks now. And then just it's a matter of keeping up with the technology. Technology is changing. When we look at the first drone that we bought compared to what you could buy today at Best Buy for $1,500, it's a very, very big difference. So that technology is going to continue to evolve, and as soon as AI, further levels of AI gets implemented, it's really going to expand the possibilities.
Excellent. What kind of applications do you see drone technology? What do you see happening in the future?
Well, I think a little bit tying into what Mark said, and maybe a bit what I said earlier with, we already have the ability for autonomous missions, but you still need a pilot to set that up. I know in some of the other segments that I deal with products in the ground-based LiDAR capture, there are technologies for fully autonomous capture, similar to what Laurie was saying about a drone just going up every Saturday, as someone requesting that technology be available. That kind of exists with those Boston Dynamics Spot robotic dogs. They've incorporated Leica is another company that we represent for survey equipment. They have ground-based LiDAR systems that can affix to these dogs and be programmed to get up at 3 a.m. every night and do a site scan, and so that when the workers come in the morning, there's data waiting for them every day. So that sort of advancement is, I'm sure, coming into the drone world at some point as well. But the limiting factor, I guess, would be restrictions from Transport Canada and Nav Canada on how safe that would be. There'd have to be some definite studies done proving safety in that realm, I would say, before anything like that would be allowed. So when you're up in the airspace, that's the responsibility of Nav Canada and Transport Canada at that point. So they need to make sure, they're looking out for people's safety. But as time moves forward and you hear about Amazon drones delivering things to people, obviously it's becoming more accepted. So I would say it's definitely going to be a reality at some point.
Thank you, Nolan. Laurie, you mentioned that drones are currently being used for marketing purposes in the home building sector. What do you think are the next steps for home building?
That is an incredibly loaded question. I mean, the next steps are unlimited. There's so much we could do, but we have to have some of our questions answered. Can these drones do these things that we're wishing they can do? Is it applicable to the new home warranty industry? Is it applicable to the housing industry? Where do we go? I guess we're going to have to whet the appetite of the builders and provide them with the answers to some of their questions. Can these drones do these things for me? And is it efficient? Can it be done cheaper? Is it reliable? Can I crunch the data? Can I understand the data? Am I going to have to do this in-house? Can I do it, with a consultant? So we have a roadblock of a whole bunch of questions that we need answered before we can determine what the next steps really are. But building homes efficiently and with affordability is definitely on our radar. So I think drones do have that ability to add to that affordability component and efficiently. I mean, when you think about my role in the industry, taking care of the problems after they happen, well, if we could reduce those problems from occurring, that reduces the affordability. It makes the affordability of houses, increase. So let's get the education out there. Let's answer some questions. Let's find out, can the drones be used to go down 30 feet and detect all the things we need to detect in our clay soils? Is there a roadblock there? How do we fix that? So yeah, I think builders are on the cusp of wanting to learn, just not knowing where to go to learn this information. There is no one-stop shop to actually go and say, hey, on this menu of items, I can use the drone for X, Y, and Z. So it's so daunting for them to find this information out that they spend 10 minutes looking and stop. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to target residential construction, there has to be a little bit more research done, I think, and questions answered. I think I had asked a question some time ago during our original course or seminar regarding the temperature outside. So our climatic conditions here in Manitoba, they can be pretty severe. So is that a roadblock as well? So we're scratching the surface. I think drones are very applicable in the construction industry if, based on those areas of applicability, really do exist.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Mark, what about in terms of bird construction? What does the future hold for drones?
I think the future, we're just going to continue to evolve, and we're going to continue to invest in technology, and continue to try and be a leader in the industry, and make sure we're there with the other top general contractors in the province. The technology's there. We've seen it. When we initially invested in drones, provided some value, and at that point a lot of it was related to marketing and just getting those shots that you would normally have to hire a pilot and a photographer for, and now those are things that we were able to do with drones, and we saved money that way. And then it evolved into quality control and inspections, and then a survey. I think it's just going to continue to evolve as the technology gets better, which we know it's going to. We're going to continue to stay on board and evolve with that technology.
Excellent. Great segue to my next question. Looking at money and finances, have drones saved the company money, and what has the cost savings look like?
Difficult to put exact dollar figures, but I do know, like in terms of an example of inspections, and I talked earlier about looking at a bridge that needed some repair work. We partnered up with a leading engineering firm here in the city, and there's a bridge that needed some work, and you have a couple different options. You wait for the winter to come and, work off of lifts off the ice, or, you rent a barge, and then again, you're putting equipment on there. And, a lot of that is very, very expensive versus, you go up and you're standing on the bridge and you have a screen and you're flying the drone around. And again, with the quality of the photos and the quality of the video, it's really as good as being right there. So, in terms of, gaining access to areas that are difficult to access, I think there's some huge savings there. We like to go out there and build very unique buildings, and sometimes those buildings are difficult to get to some of these areas and to do the work and inspect the work. And we've used drones in those situations to gain access to be able to inspect that work or take a look at progress or all sorts of different things in that sense. So, it's you could easily be saving, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars depending on the application, but it is very specific to each situation as it arises.
Okay, thank you. Nolan, from your perspective, how have drones saved money?
Yes, I totally agree with what Mark was saying there. And I guess I would say, just from a surveyor's perspective, kind of almost touching back on what I said initially with doing large-scale surveys, where you're having a single man with a survey pole or two men out there surveying all day long. What you can do with a drone, that same survey to the same level of accuracy with much more data-rich content in an hour versus multiple days. So when people see that sort of time reduction, there's huge cost savings there. And when you're a company that's, say like an aggregate company that runs a bunch of pits, to hire a survey company to come in and do that work versus having a drone and someone technically capable at your office fly it and do it for you internally in an hour of what used to take a week. It's, there's really no comparison to how much time and savings are with the drone technology there. Let me think of other industries, like inspections and things like that. And, I can relate to what Mark was saying too. When you're inspecting, say, telecom or wind generation, inspecting that sort of equipment, like towers and things like that, there is lots of risk, lots of, things that you're going to encounter putting someone in harm's way, inspecting those things physically, where drones come in and do it safely, where you're working from the ground and you still are bringing back imagery and data that is just as good, if not better, than actually physically sending somebody up there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Laurie, how do you think drones will make construction processes more efficient and streamline operations?
Again, this is a difficult question to answer when we don't know how we're going to apply the drones. But, so we're talking efficiency? Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest area I can see is when it comes to site supervision. So you can't have one site supervisor at each home being built when a builder has multiple homes in an area. So that's obviously an area where efficiency can be improved, and it's echoed by all the builders that I've spoken with. They're not sure how that looks. They don't want to buy a drone and fly it and invest in the cost for just one application. They would like to see it apply in more than one area to make it worth their while. But so definitely when it comes to inspection, that's an area that we could reduce a lot of the errors that are being made. And so when it comes to the topography, so doing soil tests, now that's an area for the engineers, or the developers, and not something that the builders really have a lot of hold on. But if they spend X amount of money, $1,200, let's say, for a site survey to provide some geosampling of the area. How long does it take for that engineer to do it? Is it providing them enough data? Could a drone do that better? Could a drone do it quicker? Let's say there's 20 areas to look at. If you've got one engineer going and doing core sampling, that could take some time. And so there's the efficiency component there would be helpful. Again, that goes back to my earlier question. Can we use it in that application? Because that seems to be the most important application that builders are seeing that would help them out. So security. So we were talking about AI and robotics. And so I think, that's on that wish list. Can I get that drone to be programmed to take a look at my site once a week and provide me some data? So having that information when you start work on Monday to determine the rest of your workflow for the week, rather than having a site supervisor spend 2 days driving from home to home to home, looking at that information and then getting it back to you. That would be efficient as well. So efficiency, definitely, especially in the new home warranty industry, the ability for me to call on a consultant with a drone and say, hey, I've got these defects in a home. One of them is a roofing defect. One of them is, a water leak that we have. If we actually could use a drone that has all these far-reaching applications that I spoke of before, these are very common defects that I receive in a warranty claim. And if one consultant could use a drone or whether it be 2 drones, to give me information on all of those defects, that's going to cut down the number of trades that I need to hire, another number of consultants I need to, number of visits, because that's very important for the homeowner. The homeowner needs to take some time off to be there when we're, so it's efficient for everybody. So yeah, efficiency is far-reaching.
Thank you. Mark, as operations manager at Bird Construction, I'm curious, are you finding the processes are more efficient with the use of drones?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Again, when you talk about survey, inspections, we talked about all those things earlier. Those are the things that I would focus in on. Those areas for sure have we've seen a level of efficiency. Just the amount of time, the amount of data that's captured, all of those things. We're seeing significant improvements.
Thank you. Nolan, did you want to add to the efficiency?
Efficiency, yeah. Maybe touched on it a couple times, I think, but it is why people are trending towards drones, I think. It is bottom line, it's a more efficient way to do things than you could before, especially in surveying and inspection. So,
While you've got the microphone, I'm curious, Nolan, why do you think there's some resistance to using drones in the workplace?
I think there's a couple reasons. One obviously would be the pilot licensing program. Everyone is, maybe a little pushed back on what that requires. I would encourage people that are watching this that are interested to actually go and just do a Google search for Transport Canada UAV or RPAS guidelines. Or Transport Canada drones, and you'll come to a Transport Canada page that basically has all the common questions you might think of on how do I actually do this by the book, and they've addressed every question in a very easy to follow way. So I would really encourage people to go check out Transport Canada's actual page on drones and how to be compliant with their regulations. And it basically lays it out what you need to do. From my perspective, I know there is a drone training program that you're going to have to do called a UAV or RPAS ground school. And this is going to basically prepare you to write an exam that Transport Canada puts in front of you. And there's 2 different tests you can take. One is for a basic operator and the other is for an advanced operator. Obviously, basic limits you to what you can actually do as far as operating the drone in certain conditions. Near airports and things like that, where advanced you kind of have an open license to kind of go anywhere, as long as you're still following some of the NAV Canada guidelines as far as reporting what you're doing. The other factor I think that aside from pilot licensing would be working with the data or processing the data. Does the company have someone technically capable? And when you get into construction companies, maybe more on the heavy side versus building construction, they're not always going to have, someone in the office doing CAD work, for instance, on a regular basis, which is, and maybe even similar in the home building industry. But working with the data does require someone that is a bit technically savvy. Getting that person on staff. Typically, what we find when we are dealing with a company that's new to it, we're always going to ask the question, who do you have in mind that to handle this internally in your company? Do you have, say, a young person that's good with computers? A very simple question like that. And typically that person is going to be just fine dealing with this. And, being young, they might be very motivated to even get into the piloting side. But some companies will have that separated where it's the pilots are one entity and then the data processing and manipulation is another group entirely. So depends on the size of the company, I guess. But bigger companies will have a drone pilot or a few drone pilots that maybe cross the whole country and pilot in all their situations. And then the data is just sent back to each office individually. That would be a national company sort of structure. Mm-hmm. Small companies will have one person as I'm the pilot and I process the data.
Right.
Yeah.
Laura, you mentioned education as one of the challenges and the barriers. What other reasons can you see as a reason for the resistance to the use of drones?
I don't have a problem.
Right.
that's what, that's the barrier. I don't have a problem that needs to be fixed. So why should I look at drones as my solution? And so that's the education piece, really, is that the builders don't have enough information at their disposal to say, hey, drone technology would work for this problem, for that problem, etc. The traditional methods of fixing these problems have worked, and until we can provide some strong information to support that drones can give you the same amount of solution to your problem efficiently and cost effectively, then that's our roadblock. Like I mentioned, there are some questions out there as to whether or not drones will be applicable in our climate, given our soil conditions and our weather conditions. So some research needs to be done so we can maybe make a one-stop shop information portal that will help builders determine if this is a right solution for them. Now, once they get past that hurdle, we are going back to that component of do we need an extra employee? Do I need one or two drones? Maybe I should just hire a consultant for my issue. So it's very hard for a builder or a warranty provider, for that matter, to get past the roadblocks of cost, because that seems to be the biggest issue. It's going to cost me way too much, and then that learning curve until we know that we can apply it for our everyday use. Mm-hmm. So that's about it. How is it going to fix my problem?
Excellent. Nolan, what type of employment opportunities can you see with this advancing technology? What do you see ahead?
I would say, if a young person's watching this thinking, should I go and get my drone pilot's license? I'm entering engineering, surveying, or even construction, right? I would say 100%. As time moves forward, I think it's almost going to be one of the things that employers look for as a requirement to hire new staff, depending what area of company you're intending to go into. But any new employee that you're considering as a company that has a drone pilot's license versus someone that doesn't, I would say you're probably going to look to that drone pilot because they've taken that extra step, and it costs a little bit of money to take the training, and it's not something that's easy to pass, especially on the advanced license. So someone that's been dedicated enough to actually to go through that and do it all. I think more and more companies are probably going to be looking for people coming into their organizations that have these licenses.
Okay. Mark, from your perspective, what types of employment opportunities would there be with this advancing technology?
I think for us, I look at the groups of people, whether it's a superintendent, a project coordinator, project manager, those are all individuals, our marketing side, all individuals that, potentially are working with drones. I think if you give yourself, it just gives you the opportunity to expand your skills, having that training, having the ability to fly a drone. We know that the technology is continuing to increase. We know that we're going to continue to invest in the technology. We got good partners like Lewis that we've worked with for decades, and they help us along the way, and they give us the training. We touched on education, understanding what kind of benefits there are to using the latest and greatest equipment is going to make us more efficient. So when I look at it, drones can really apply right across the board to all the different roles within our organization. Are we going to see estimators, have drones flying around to, take a look at a site prior to bidding it? Right now, I think we're just scratching the surface of, the potential from this technology and the various technology that's going to be available to us in the near future.
Excellent. Last question posed for each of you. What is the best way that we can do to educate companies about the use of this technology?
I touched on earlier, work with key suppliers. I mentioned before we've been working with Lewis for decades. We've purchased lots of different equipment from them. They're experts in the industry, and they've taught us a few different things and opened up our eyes on how we can be more efficient. It's a very competitive environment out there. You want to have every edge you can get, and if you look at the first transit that we bought or builder's level however many years ago compared to what we're using today, like the technology's come a long ways, and you just got to continue to educate yourself, invest in the equipment, and evolve. And as the equipment becomes more readily available, costs come down and it becomes more affordable, and you're going to start seeing it through other parts of the industry. But yeah, I think it's working with your partners is a key component to that.
Thank you.
And as a supplier of technology to companies like Bird and others, I think it's partly our responsibility to be out talking to people and telling them about these things, showing them these new technologies, and that is our job essentially at Lewis. Distributing these types of new technology is to get out in front of people and explain the new things that are coming, capabilities that maybe they didn't know exist that we can help them with, train them on. At our company, we're big on, not just providing equipment, but providing the support and the training and making sure the person using the equipment is going to be efficient and competent and happy with the purchase at the end of the day. So.
Thank you. Lori, what's the best way to educate the home building sector?
Well, so the home building sector is very hands-on. They want to see, they want to touch, they want to feel, they want to know the applicability to their environment, to their building homes. And we have found that through examples, so as an example, blower door tests, when those first became quite popular, you could hire a consultant to come by and do a blower door test for you, and builders were signed up to say, yeah, I'd like to try this too. I want to see if it's relevant for me, what kind of data I can get from that. Is it going to help me with the efficiency of my home? And so in the same manner, if they could reach out to a consultant in the industry to say, hey, come on down and show me if this can solve my problem. How is it applicable to new home construction? But in general, I think the best way to get this across to all builders all at once is maybe we need a video. Maybe we need some sort of documentary that takes all this wish list of items, goes through them, and actually provides some real-time examples and shows them the actual use of a drone and the data it can produce, and then give some idea of the efficiency, the time-saving component there, all in one one video that we can disseminate over and over and over again. I think that would be the best way to achieve this.
Excellent suggestion. Thank you. Do you have anything to add to the conversation?
Sure. I'd just like to say thanks for having us down today, Carol. I think this video that we're putting together here hopefully does achieve some of that goal, right? Getting the word out, getting people asking questions. And yeah, just thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening today to the panelists who have been exploring the use of this new technology in Manitoba. If you'd like more information, please reach out to Manitoba Construction Sector Council. My name is Carol Paul. Thank you.